Well, good evening. Doing a bit more horror today, and we'll be back reading Slaughter by Darren Shan, one of my favourite authors, as I've noted before. What I love about him is that the sentences are short, very readable, and if you want to get into reading, but you're not really sure where to start, I would recommend Darren Shan. The stories are really good, and the twists at the end are brilliant as well. So, we'll be reading through him. This chapter is called Monsters Galore. Dervish has another nightmare. 4 nights in a row. He must be going for a record. Luckily, I'd been expecting this one. Dervish shut himself off from me after Prayatim left. Kept to his study, pacing around, muttering, brooding. I guessed nightmares would follow. Stayed awake after he went to bed, alert, prepared for a long, active night. I catch Dervish in the Hall of Portraits. He snuck past my room without me hearing, even though I'd already been listening closely. But a minute ago the screaming started, and it was easy to track him down. The walls of this hall are lined with photographs and paintings of my dead family members, mostly teenagers who became werewolves. It's on the first floor, close to my bedroom when I arrive. Dervis has knocked several photos to the floor and is wrestling with a large portrait, trying to tear it free of its peg. "Leave me alone," he screams. "It's not my fault." "Dervish," I call, hurrying over to him, grabbing his right hand, trying to pry his fingers loose. "Dervishio, Derv on a curve, don't lose your verve." I roar and bawl, "Not in this hole." He ignores the rhymes and jerks free. "Get out of my skull, you're eating my brain." He collapses to his knees, grips his head hard with both hands, moans with pain and terror. "Dervish, easy, it's okay, it's coolio, you have to chill." You on the ground, everything's sound. His eyes fix on a nearby photograph. His breath catches. "I didn't do it," he gasps. "I didn't kill you. Leave me alone." I sweep the photos away, then grab Dervish's hands, pull them up from his head, and lock gazes with him. "Wake up, you crazy bald coot. It's only a dream. No need to scream. None of it is real. Fantasy's the deal. You have to snap back. Come on. I know you're in there. I know." His expression clears. He looks like a lost child for a few seconds, pitiful, silently begging me for help. Then the real Dervish surfaces, and terror gives way to exhaustion and embarrassment. I release him, nodding slowly and repeating to show everything's okay. No damage done. Dervish looks around at the photos on the floor. Most are ripped, a couple beyond repair. No glasses in the frames. We removed all the glass a few months ago in case something like this happened. Didn't want him hurting himself, or me. "I thought they'd come back to life," Dervish says. "They blamed me. They claimed I was the cause of the curse. They wanted revenge. It was just a dream." "I know, but still," he shivers. "I could have done without Prayatim and the lambs. I didn't need them now. Not in this state. Why do bad things always come at the worst time?" "Forget about her," I tell him. "She's gone. You ran her off." Maybe I shouldn't have." He coughs, then stands. "No, that's the nightmare talking. The lambs can't help. They mean well, but in matters like this they're helpless." "Unlike the disciples?" I ask, broaching the mysterious subject for the first time. Not sure if this is the right moment, but curiosity getting the better of me. Dervish shakes his head. "I'll tell you about them later. Not now, okay?" I sniff, like it doesn't matter. Dervish grows thoughtful. "Billy doesn't know about the change, Lord Loss, what we did for him. It's better that way. No point in throwing his world into chaos. The lambs are part of the human world. They've no direct experience of the demonata or magic. They couldn't learn anything from Billy." "Then don't worry about it," I mutter. "Go back to bed and get a good night's sleep. Kick the nightmares out the window." Dervish laughs. If only if it were that easy. He checks his watch, yawns. I'll try to snooze, to keep Nurse Grutch happy. He glances at me. If I drop off, I might go walkabout again. You should lock me up. Nah, I smile. You'd wreck the room. Don't worry about it. I'll sleep with one ear open. I'll see you don't come to harm. Dervish reaches over, squeezes my hand, then shuffles off for the stairs and bed. I watch as he turns a corner, stay for a while, thinking about Billy, the lambs, demons, the mysterious disciples. I start clearing up the photos and hanging the less tattered snapshots back in their pegs, knowing I won't be able to sleep. Tired, finding it hard to stay awake. My friends want to know if there's any David A. Hem updates, but I only grunt at their questions. Studying Billy during lunch, thinking about him in the hands of the lambs, strapped to a table, looking up to the banks of electrodes. I can't let that happen. I face Lord Loss for my brother. If Prayatim tries anything with Billy, she won't have to worry about Dervish and the disciples. She'll have to deal with me. Yeah, I know, she's hardly trembling in terror at the thought of having to go up against a teenager, but I am big and I can be nasty if I have to. A limousine's parked in the drive when I get home. A chauffeur sits behind the wheel, dozing. No prizes for guessing who the limo belongs to. I hear as soon as I push open the front doors. She's in the TV room, a loud voice, high-pitched, very theatrical. She's talking about one of her earlier movies that might be zombie-zest, telling Dervish about the problems she faced trying to get the look of the monsters right. And everybody's using CGI these days. I don't like it. The audience can tell. They're not afraid. It's psychological. You see a guy in a monster costume or a cleverly designed puppet, and even though you know it's not real, you can trick yourself into believing it is. But you see something that's a work of the computer, and your brain can't accept it. It doesn't scare you, I think. I walk into the room and cough softly. David Ahame looks up from where she's sitting on the couch. A surprisingly normal-looking woman, 50-ish, black hair streaked with grey, pudgy, a warm smile, purple-rimmed glasses, a bright flowery dress. She looks more like a giggly granny than a horror movie meister. Davida, this is my nephew Grubbs, Dervish introduces us. He's sitting between her and the couch, looking a bit overwhelmed. I have a feeling Davida hasn't stopped talking since she came home. Grubbs lives with me. Hello, Grubbs, Davida says, rising to shake my hand. A short woman, barely comes up to my chest. Neat name. Is it short for something? Grubbage, I mutter. I'm a fan of yours. I thought Nightmares was the best horror film I'd seen in the last 10 years. Why, thank you, David booms, not releasing my hand. Although, to be honest, my input wasn't so great. The director, Liam Fitz, is a real hardhead, likes to make the creative decisions himself. I set him off, gave him whatever he asked for, but after that, she shrugs, holding my hand. And this is June, Dervish says, drawing my attention to the third person in the room, sitting in the chair to my left. Junie, she corrects him, getting up. Junie Swan. David Ahame finally releases my fingers, and I shake hands with the other woman. She's small too, slightly taller than Davida, thin, pretty, white hair, very pale skin, pinkish eyes, an albino. Her hair's tied back in a ponytail. Hard to tell her age because of her skin, it's so white and smooth. Junie, this is Miss Hame's assistant. She is Miss Hame's assistant, Dervish says. Davida, the producer corrects him and tuts slightly. I can't stand on ceremony. And I'm not her assistant, Ginny says, almost apologetically. She speaks very softly. Although I am here to assist. Let's sit down, Davida says, as if this was her house. She leads us back to the chairs and pats the space on the couch beside her, forcing me to sit with her and Dervish. I've been telling your uncle about my problems in other movies. As I'm sure you know, we can tell you're a horror movie buff. I love monsters. Love them. Fangs, tentacles, bulging eyes, slime. All great stuff, right? Right? But getting them to look real, believable, scare people to the max, that's hard as hell. I'm telling you nothing new. You've seen lots of terrible monster flicks, I'm sure, where the creatures are about as scary as a baby in a pram. Yeah, I grin. Most monster films are crap. That's why they're fun. I agree, David shouts. She thumps Dervish's knee so hard he gasps. I like this kid. He knows his nettles from his roses. She turns back to me. We all love the schlocky horror, where the effects are lame and the monsters are tame. I grew up on the old Universal and Hammer pictures, and that's fine. Sometimes you just want to sit down to a corny bit of hokum and have a laugh. She raises a finger and lowers her voice. But are there times when you don't want to laugh, right? When you want to be scared? When you want your world turned upside down? When you want to sit there in the dark and feel real fear bite, right? Hell yeah! There was a period after my battles with Lord Loss and his familiars when I didn't enjoy horror. Life was fearful enough, but as the months passed and the memories of the real horror faded, I rediscovered my love of fictional terror. That's where I want to go with my next movie, David says, loud again. I've been off the scene for a while, almost 4 years since the last film. That's because I've been researching and planning. I want to do something big with my next one, not rehash an older story. I want screams, not laughs. I want to go for the jugular, shake audiences up, send them home shivering. Coolio, I exclaim, which is where your uncle comes in. David smooths down her skirt and turns a smile on Dervish. We will talk business now, or do you want to wait? Now's good for me, Dervish says. Okay. David glances around to be sure nobody's eavesdropping. I'm about to shoot my new film. Everything's set, and I'm not producing. I've written the script, and I'm directing too. Can you imagine? Me, a director? She throws her head back and laughs. Dervish and I laugh too, although we have no idea what the joke is. I've kept the project secret, David continues. I keep quiet about all my films, but I've been especially hush-hush with this one. Everyone connected has signed a lip-sealed contract. The monster designs are locked in the state-of-the-art safe, and only 2 people besides myself have ever seen them in their entirety. Everyone gets a small piece to work on. We won't be shooting in any established studios. I've created my own, far from prying eyes. Most people aren't even aware I'm working again. They think I'm sitting on my ass on the beach, twiddling my thumbs, creatively defunct. Sounds like you've given yourself a lot of headaches, Dervish says. Are you kidding? David snorts. I'm having a ball. It's the film I've always wanted to make. I love intrigue, suspense, secrets. It's a game, the best in the world, and I'm the only one that knows the rules. I wouldn't trade places with anybody not right now for anything. I'm glad you're happy, Dervish says, but I don't see why he leaves the question hanging. Why I'm telling you? David looks at me and winks. Why I'm telling the 2 of you? She lowers her voice again. I don't think she's capable of whispering, but this is as close as she gets. What I say now has to remain between us. I haven't asked you to sign a confidentiality form yet. You'll have to do it later, if you agree to my offer. But from what I've heard, you're a man of your word, and I'm not sure about grubs. I can keep a secret, I huff. You don't have to worry about me. Excellent. She gives my right knee a squeeze and almost crushes it. So when I ask you to keep what I'm about to say to yourselves, not to tell anyone, even your best friends, can I trust you? I won't speak, even under torture, Dervish laughs. Me neither, I back him up. Great, David beams. Then listen close and keep it quiet. The film's called Slawter. Slaughter, I echo. Brilliant. I think so too, David chuckles. Slaughter, which is spelt with a W instead of a UGH, is the name of a town in the movie. It's a bit obvious, maybe, but I've always liked a gruesomely OTT play on words. I think it'll look great on the posters. Welcome to Slaughter, or Let the Slaughter Commence. She squints. Maybe we'll have to work on the tagline, but you get the picture. Now, there's a good part of the reason why I'm here, and The bit I know that you're going to love the best. Slaughter's going to be all about demons. She sits back, awaiting our response, unaware that she's just dropped the mother of all bombshells. David, I can't understand why we're not excited. Doesn't know what made our shifty glances awkward and awkward silence. She keeps talking about the movie, tells us the demons will take over the town of Slaughter. She describes some of the characters and scenes. Dervish and I listen stiffly. Okay, David finally says. What's wrong? She sniffs at her armpits. Do I stink? Dervish forces a thin smile. There's nothing wrong, it's just we're not fond of demons, are we, Grubs? No, I grunt. Why not? David asks. Demons are the scariest monsters of the lot. Too scary, Dervish mutters, then laughs edgily. David frowns. But you're supposed to be the demon expert. The more I research, the more your name crops up. I've been told you know all about their ways, their habits, their appearance. You're talking about them as if they were real, Ginny Swan chuckles. Of course they're not real, David snorts. But there have been lots of stories and legends about demons, plenty of descriptions and paintings, and Dervish knows more about that than most. He has some of the hardest to find demonic books and manuscripts in the world, right? I know more than many, not as much as some, Dervish answers cagily. What I can say is demons aren't to be taken lightly. If you want to make stuff up, go ahead, use your imagination, have fun. But I suspect you want to do more than that. Damn straight, David huffs. I want the real deal, the fiercest demons on record. I want this to be believable. I've almost got what I need, as I've said. I've been working on this for 4 years. My demons are ready to go, but I want them to behave realistically. I want every last detail right, so even the greatest demon scholar won't be able to find fault. David points at Dervish. That's where you come in. I want your expertise, your insight and knowledge. I want you to come on set as an advisor. Tell us when we make mistakes, steer us right, help us pin the images down. You've got the wrong guy, Dervish says. I know nothing about movies. There's a first time for everything, David insists. I'm not saying you have to look at this as a career movie, just a break from the norm. You get to see a film made, hang out with some of the actors and crew, tell us what to do when we're messing up, and the money's not bad either. Ginny coughs politely. David, have you seen this place? I don't think money's an issue. Correct, Dervish? I have to admit, I'm not hard up, Dervish says, smiling at the pretty albino. So don't do it for the money, David shrugs. Do it for the experience. This'll be a once in a lifetime. You could bring Grubs along too. You'd like to see a movie being made, wouldn't you, Grubs? You bet, I answer enthusiastically. And then I remember what the film's about. But demons, it sounds silly, but I pull a face. This is incredible, David snaps. I thought you guys would be dying to get in on this. There are others I can ask if you're going to be ridiculous about this. I'm not. David, Ginny interrupts calmly. You won't convince them to get involved by antagonizing them. If they don't want to do it, you just have to accept their decision and move on. I know, David mutters. I just don't get why they're turning me down. It's nothing personal, Dervish says, then looks at Ginny. What's your role in this, Miss Swan? I'm a psychologist. There are lots of children involved in the movie. I've been hired to look after them on set. Do you do a lot of this type of work? Dervish asks. Ginny shakes her head. This is my first time. I brought Ginny along because we're going to interview a young actor later, David says. I like her to be involved. I like her to be involved with the kids, as early as possible. And she can spot a problem child a mile off. What about problem adults? Dervish asks. I don't think you'd be any problem, Ginny responds with a shy smile. I'm not so sure about that, David grunts. Then she turns the full force of her smile on Dervish. Hellfire, Grady. I don't care if you're a problem or not. I want you on the team. What can I do to convince you? Dervish starts to say there's nothing she can do, then hesitates, glances at Ginny and frowns. Do you have a copy of the script? No, David says, and I wouldn't show it to you even if I did. But I've got some excerpts on disc, along with a rough plot outline and descriptions of some of the demons. I need something to grab the interest of potential investors. And I don't like revealing even that much, especially to someone who hasn't even signed a contract. I understand, Dervish says, but if I could have a look, I'd be able to tell you whether or not you need me. I don't want to waste your time or mine. If there's no reason for me to be there, nothing I can help you with, then. David doesn't look happy. I have a few copies on the disc, she said, nodding at the bag on the floor. They're digitally protected, so you shouldn't be able to copy the material and send it to anyone by email. But she thinks it over, then reaches into her bag and produces a boxed disc. I don't know why I'm trusting you with this. You're not that important to me. But you're the first person to turn me down on this movie, and I don't like it. People aren't supposed to say no to the fabulous David Ahim. She snorts, and then rises. You can have it for 24 hours. Ginny and I have an interview tonight. We'll be passing back this way tomorrow. We'll drop by and collect the disc. I'll ask, just once, if you've changed your mind. If you don't want to do it, fine. She beams at Dervish, nods at me, then heads for the door, like a person of noble birth. Ginny gets up, smiling. She's a drama queen, isn't she? Ginny says when David is out of earshot. And then some, Dervish laughs. But she's sweet, Ginny says, and a natural with the children. She treats them like a mother. Not bad to the bone, or not a bad bone in her body, despite the horror films she makes. Ginny starts for the door and pauses, looks at Dervish. I hope you change your mind, She stops, clears her throat, smiles quickly and exits. Dervish hurries after her to see the pair out. I remain in the TV room, staring at the disc on the couch, sensing trouble of the very worst kind, though I'm not sure why. End of that chapter. And note these don't have numbers, which isn't the most convenient, but anyway, on to the next chapter. This one's called Don't Go Down the Cellar. Dervish is humming when he returns. Nice people, he says. Especially Junie, I note dryly. Yes, he picks up the disc and looks at it silently. What made you change your mind? I ask. I haven't, he says. But you're thinking about it, aren't you? Yes, this is probably nothing to worry about. Just a filmmaker coming up with the usual smorgasbord of hysterical fakes. But I've got the feeling that Davida knows too much for her own good. She wants the film to be realistic. Maybe she plans to dabble where she shouldn't, use the old rights that might backfire. I'm a hard man to find. I'm worried that she was able to root me out. It makes me wonder what else she might know. So, you want to check the plot of the demon descriptions and make sure there's nothing dodgy going on? I ask. Dervish nods. Except I got the impression you only agreed to think it over when Ginny smiled at you. Don't be ridiculous, Dervish protests. She had nothing to do with it. But by the strength of his reaction and the way he storms off out of the room in a huff, I'm sure she did. Having shrugged off my foolish sense of unease, I try convincing Dervish to let me have a look at the disc. I want to know what David A. Hem film looks like in its early stage, but he refuses and locks himself in his study. Back downstairs, I fall asleep on the couch, weak some time during the night, cold, shivering, thinking about hauling myself up to bed, but I'm too lazy. Instead, I grab a few pillows and stack them around me for warmth. I start to drift off asleep again, when suddenly I snap wide awake. Dervish is in trouble. I'm not sure how I know. Gut instinct. I slide off the couch, scattering the pillows, and race upstairs. Dervish isn't in his bedroom or study, nowhere on the second floor or the first. I wind up back on the ground floor. A quick scout, no sign of him. That means he either went out or down to the cellar. Before descending, I go to the kitchen and make sure Dervish hasn't broken into the cutlery cupboard and stocked up on knives, and then I head down the stairs, Automatic lights flicker as I hit the bottom steps. The cellar's where Dervish stores his wine. I don't come down there much. Nothing of interest for me. Listening to the hum of the lights, watching for shadows, trying to pinpoint Dervish's position. After a minute, I take a final step and explore the rows of wine racks, fist clench, anticipating an attack. I don't find Dervish in the cellar. Search complete. I want to go back upstairs and try the area outside the house, but there's still one place to look. It's the last place I want to try, which makes me suspect that's where Dervish is. One of the walls in the house has a secret doorway. I make for that now. It's covered by a giant wine rack, mostly containing normal bottles, but one's fake. I find it, press hard on the cork with my finger. It sinks in. The rack splits in two, both halves, and they slide away from each other, revealing a dark, narrow corridor. Dervish, I call. My voice echoes back to me, unanswered. I start down the corridor, breathing raggedly. The halves of the wine rack slide back into place and plunged into darkness, but it's temporary. Moments later, lights flicker on overhead, the glow just strong enough to see by. The corridor runs to a secret cellar underground. It's where Dervish keeps most of his magical and dangerous books. If he goes, where he goes if he wants to practice magic. It's where we fought Lord Loss all those months ago, where I almost died. I come to the thick wooden door with a gold ring for the handle. The door stands ajar, and there's a pale light coming from within. Dervish, I call again. No answer. I really don't want to go in, but I must. I push the door open all the way and enter, heart pounding. A large room. Wooden beams support the ceiling. Many torches set in the walls, but none are lit. A steel cage in one corner. The bones of a deer lying on the floor within. Two broken tables. A third in good repair. Chess pieces, books, charred pages, and a few bits of debris brushed from the walls. A stack of weapons close to the rubbish, lined with dust, riddled with cobwebs. And Dervish, squatting in the middle of the room, a candle in one hand, a book in the other. I approach cautiously, freeze when I catch sight of the book. There's a painting of Lord Loss on the cover. Just his face, and it's moving. His awful red eyes are widening, his lips spreading. Dervish is muttering a spell, bending closer to the book. Lord Loss's teeth glint in the light of the candle. His face starts to come off the page, like a 3D image, reaching for Dervish as if to kiss him. I hurl myself at Dervish, knock him over, and punch the book from his hand. The candle goes out. We're plunged into darkness. Dervish screams. I hear him scrabbling for the book. I thrash around. I find Dervish and throw myself on top of him, pin him to the floor, yelling at him, keeping him away from the book, calling his name over and over, using all my weight to keep him down. Finally, he stops fighting, pants heavily, then croaks. Grubs? I don't reply. You're squashing me, he wheezes. Are you awake? I cry. Of course. Now get off me before... A pause. Where are we? The secret cellar. Damn. What was I... You had a book about Lord Loss and you were chanting a spell. His face was moving. It looked like it was coming alive, coming through. I'm sorry, Let's get some light. I'm awake, honest. You can get off me, I promise. Weary, I slide aside. Dervish gets to his feet, stumbles to the nearest wall. I hear him rooting through his pockets, and then he strikes a match, finds the nearest candle and sets it aflame. The room lights up. I see the book lying face down, no movement. Could you have brought him here? I ask, not taking my eyes off the book. No, Dervish says, but I could have summoned part of his spirit, given him enough strength to hurt me. And me? Absolutely not. You were safe. The spirit couldn't have gotten out of this room. But when I came in... Dervish says nothing, a guilty silence, then a deep sigh. Let's get out of here. There are things we must discuss. And the book? I ask. Leave it. It can't do any harm. Not now. Standing, I stagger out of the room. Dervish follows, leaving the candle burning. shutting the door on the past, trailing me back up the corridor to the safety of the normal world. The disciples fight the demonata and do what they can to keep them out of our universe. We're in Dervish's study. We both have mugs of hot chocolate, sitting facing each other across the main desk. They're all magically inclined, Dervish continues. Not true magicians, but we have talents and abilities. Call us mages if you like. In an area of magic, the demonata's universe, or a place where a demon is crossing, our powers are magnified. We can do things you wouldn't believe. No, scratch that. Of course you'd believe. You fought Lord Loss. How many disciples are there? I asked. 25, 30, maybe a few more, Dervish shrugs. We're loose-knit. Our founder is an old guy called Barnabas. He is a true magician, and we don't see a lot of him. He spends most of his time among the demonata, waging wars the rest of us could only dream of winning. Barnabas sometimes gives us orders, sets one or more of us a specific task, but mostly we do our thing. That's why we're not sure on the exact number. There's a core group who keep in touch, track the movements of demons, and work together to try to deal with threats. But there are others we only see occasionally. In an emergency, I guess Barnabas could assemble us all, but in the usual run of things, we don't have contact with every member. So that's your real job, I say softly, fighting demons. He smiles crookedly. Don't misinterpret what I'm telling you. This isn't an organization of crack magical heroes who battle demons every week. There's just a few disciples who have fought the demonata several times, but most have never gone up against them, maybe only once or twice. Then what do they do? I frown. Travel, he says, tour the world, watch for sign of demonic activity, try to prevent crossings. Demons can't swap universes at will. They need human assistance, wicked, power-hungry mages who work with them from this side to help them open windows between their realm and ours. Usually there are signs. If you know what to look for, you can stop it before it happens. That's what we do. Watch for evidence of a forming window. Find a person looking for the demon. Stop them before it gets out of hand. You don't travel around, I note. Is that because of me? No, Dervis smiles. I used to travel a lot, but I do most of my work from here now, at the command of Barnabas. That's my job. Well, let's not get into that. It's not relevant. Dervis sips from his mug, looking away from over the rim, waiting my reaction. What happens when a demon crosses? I ask. It depends on the strength of the demon. Most of the truly powerful demonata can't use windows. They're too big, magically speaking. They need a tunnel to cross, a wider, stronger form of window. They're much more difficult to open. It's been centuries since anyone constructed a tunnel. Lord Lost is a master demon, I note. He crosses. He is an exception. We don't know why he can cross when others like him can't. He just can. There are rules where magic's concerned, but those rules can't be bent, or can be bent. Anything's possible with magic, even supposedly logically impossible things. The other demons who can cross are nowhere near as powerful as Lord Loss, Dervish continues. We travel back to the lesser specimens, or we drive back lesser specimens, but we leave the stronger demons alone, just trying to limit the damage. And let them get away with it, I cry. You let them kill? Dervish lowers his mug. I'm not as heartless as it sounds. There's far less magic in our universe than theirs. When they cross, they're nowhere near as powerful as they are in their own realm. They can only stay here for a few minutes. Occasionally a window will remain open for longer, an hour or two, but that's rare. Thankfully, because if they could cross with their own powers intact and stay as long as they liked, we'd have all been wiped out long ago. We stop maybe half of all potential crossings, Dervish goes on, which is pretty good whenever you consider how few of us there are, although we're only talking 6 or 7 attempts to cross any given year. So 3 or 4 get through, I ask. Approximately. We aren't always there when one crosses, and when we are, he sighs, If it's a weaker demon, try to drive it back. A single disciple will engage it, occasionally a pair. We don't like to risk too many on a single venture. And when you don't think you can stop it, I ask quietly. Dervish looks away. A demon will normally kill no more than 10 or 20 people when it crosses. Still, I protest. 10 people? Dervish, 10 lives. What do you want us to do? He snaps. There are battles we can't win, and when we do, we can. We do what we can. We can't do any more. We're not bloody superheroes. Sure, I say quickly. Sorry, I didn't mean to sound critical. I know, he mutters. When I first heard about the disciples, I was like you. I didn't want to admit the possibility of defeat or make concessions. But there you see, enough people die. You realize life's not like the movies or comics. You can't save everyone. It's not an option. Dervish falls silent. We'd never talked this much in the past. To be honest, with all the problems I've faced over the last couple of years, I haven't had time to think about anyone else's troubles. But now that I consider it, I realize my uncle must have had a lot of bad stuff in his time. We got lucky against Lord Loss. We beat him at his own game and walked away relatively unharmed. But Dervish told me there are more failures than successes when humans battle demons. And if he's been around for even even a few failures, seen people die, like I saw my parents and my sister die, had to stand by and let it happen because he didn't have the power to stop it. I'm telling you this because of David Ahim, Dervish says, interrupting my thoughts. I went through her disc earlier. From the outline, it sounds like fun. Demons run wild and take over a town. But I don't like it. The few demons she described are very realistic. She mentions rituals that you can use to summon them. She's gathered information cleverly, but I don't think she knows how dangerous that information is. I'm going to accept her offer and work on the set as an advisor. I want to make sure she doesn't accidentally summon a demon or supply others with the means to. The chances of that happening are slim, and in the normal run of things, I wouldn't bother with her. But I need to get away from here for a while. His eyes were dark, haunted. I haven't been the same since I came back. The nightmares, fear, confusion. Maybe my brain will never fully recover, and I'm doomed to live like this until I die. But I'm hoping I can shrug it off. I've been living the quiet life too long. I need something to focus my attention, a challenge, something to sweep away the cobwebs in my head. But you're protected by spells here, I note. You might not be safe on the outside Carcery Vale. Lord Loss. Remember that book in the cellar, Dervish says? Unless I dig myself out of this hole, I don't think I'm safe anywhere. I nod slowly. How long will you be gone? However long a shoot lasts, Dervish says. I'll ask Mira to keep an eye on things while I'm away. Is Mira going to be staying with me? I ask, not minding the sound of that one little bit. Mira Flame is hot stuff. No, Dervish says. You won't be here either, unless you object. I want to take you with me. Billy, too. You want to take us on set? I yelp. David has said I could, he reminded me. Well, she didn't mention Billy, but I'm sure that won't be a problem. Brilliant, I gasp, face lighting up. When doubt crosses my mind. But why? 2 reasons, Dervish says. 1, I need you to look out for me at night. Help me if the nightmares continue, he stops. And the second reason? I don't trust Prayatim and the lambs. They might pull a fast one if I'm not around. You think they'll try to kidnap Billy? It's possible. Right now I want Billy to be where I can protect him. 24/7. It's easier that way. So we're going into the movie business, I laugh. Yep, Dervish laughs too. Crazy, isn't it? He checks his watch. 3:30 in the morning. Ma and Pa Spleen would hit the roof if we phoned Billy at this ungodly hour. He cocks his wicked eyebrow at me. Do you want to ring or shall I? End of part 1. On to part 2, called Lights, Camera, Demons. This chapter's called Film Folk. I I'm going to take a short break. Back in just a minute or two. Grab yourself a cup of coffee, drink of juice, whatever you fancy. Be back in 2 seconds. All right, back at it, and the chapter is Film Folk. I've always wanted to eat human flesh. I mean, it's not an obsession or anything. I wouldn't go out of my way to kill, skin, and cook somebody. But I've always been curious, wondered what it would taste like. So when the opportunity dropped in my lap, yeah, I took it. Does that make me a bad person? I don't think so. At least not much badder than, worse than, Billy interrupts. Worse. Emmett winces. I keep tripping on that. Not much worse than, not much worse than, not much worse than. I feel sorry for Emmett. Watching him struggle to learn his lines has not been easy. Keep a load of words that aren't yours straight in your head, then trot them out in a seemingly natural fashion. I used to think actors had a great life. Not anymore. Not after a week on the set of Slawter. Slawter, as David had told us whenever she visited Carcery Vale, oh, pardon me, is the title of a movie and the name of the fictional town that features in it. It's also what they've called the huge set, which David's crew has constructed. It's an amazing place. They found a deserted town in the middle of nowhere, rented the entire area, and set to work restoring the buildings, clearing the streets of rubble, putting in fake lamps, telephone wires, signs for restaurants, hotels, bars, etc. They also erected a lot of fake buildings which look real from the front but are entirely empty on the other side. Walking around the streets, it's hard to tell what are real buildings from fake ones until you open a door. There are trailers on the outskirts of Slaughter. The movie veterans refer to them as the circus, where many of the crew and cast sleep. But a lot of us are staying in old, real buildings, since they're so far away from any other town. David had decided to turn some of the buildings into makeshift hotels, so everyone could stay in one place, in comfort. The hotel, where Dervish, Billy, and I are staying, looks like a butcher's shop out front, but it's cozy inside. I haven't been told this. We'll try that again. I've been told this isn't the way films are normally made. Usually the crew does a bit of location work, then heads back to the studio to shoot the interior scenes, but Slaughter is the studio. There's huge warehouses beyond one end of the town where the interiors can be shot, and since all the outdoor action in the film is set in the town, Everything can be done on site. They even do the editing here and the special effects. Often, on a big budget film, there might be several teams around the world working on the effects at the same time, but Davida wants to keep total control over the project. She refuses to farm out any of the work, even though it makes life much harder for her. This is her baby, the jewel in her movie crown, and she's doing it exactly the way she wants. Damn the inconvenience. She keeps insisting that the cast, and she keep right here, right. Apologies. She even insists on keeping the cast together for the duration of the shoot. Emmett's worked on a couple of films before and explained now, if you have a small part in the movie, you only turn up for a few days, shoot your scenes, and then head off. Even the big stars don't hang around the set the whole time. Well, here they do. All the actors, cameramen, artists, carpenters, caterers, everyone had agreed to stay here until the filming had finished. David had kept everything secret in the build-up to shooting. Now they're all on set and the cameras are rolling. Most of the secrets have been revealed. Copies of the full script have been circulated, and we've even seen some of the demon costumes. To make sure none of the secrets leak around the world, David arranged for everyone to remain in Slawter until the entire film has been shot. It costs a fortune to keep us here. Food and drinks are free. Games have to be organised to keep people amused in their spare time. 2 swimming pools have been built, tennis courts, a football pitch, and so on. But David doesn't care. Her other movies made a load of money, and she's managed to convince her backers that this one's going to be a mega blockbuster, so she's free to spend whatever she likes. Not having any jobs to do, Billy and I are enjoying the filming. We wander through Slaughter, watch scenes being shot, check the old buildings and fakes, hang out with some of the other kids, and generally just have fun. It's great. It reminds me of when I first moved to Cursory Vale, when Billy and I pretty much spent all our free time together. We're best buddies again, breezing along in a world of our own. No Loch Glossel, or other Loch Gossel, or other friends of mine to complicate the situation. You can divide the children of Slaughter into 3 groups. They're the actors, 20 or so. Most haven't much experience, or have only been in a few films, like Emmett Egypt. Emmett Egypt, who's our best friend here. And then there's the actors' relatives. It's a big deal being a child actor. There's a lot of rules and regulations. You can only work for so many hours a day, and they have to be schooled on set. At least one of their guardians, normally a parent, has to be with them at all times, and there have to be other children for them to play with. Ginny's in charge of that side of things. She makes sure the kids are being looked after, having fun, not feeling the stress of being part of such a costly, risky venture. Finally, there's the likes of Billy and me, children of people working on the film, because everyone involved had to move to Slaughter for the duration of this shoot, for at least 3 months. They were allowed to bring their families. David likes a relaxed family atmosphere. We don't have much personal contact with David Ahim or with Dervish. He's been working closely with David since we arrived, advising, censoring, subtly guiding her away from the workings of the real demons where possible. He's only one of a few people who have ever seen inside the D workshops. That's where the demon costumes are being created. The demons are a mix of actors in costumes and mechanized puppets. There'll be some CGI effects, but David is still trying to keep the computer trickery to a minimum. The costumes and puppets are housed in the giant warehouse, the biggest in Slaughter, and access is granted to only a chosen few. Some of the costumes have been given a public airing, but most are still locked up in the D. Dervish said it's a maze of corridors and subsections in there. He's only been allowed into a couple of rooms so far, but he's trying hard to gain access to the rest, to check out all the demonic details. I've always wanted to eat human flesh, Emmett says again, running through his big lines for the 15th time today. He's playing a minor villain in the film, a kid who becomes a cannibal and works for the demons. He dies about a third of the way through, having been discovered by one of the heroes eating the corpse of their headmaster. David is shooting the film in sequence as much as possible, although, as on any movie, certain scenes from later in the script have to be shot early, which means Emmett is going to die a couple of weeks earlier than he should have. He's super excited about it. "This is my first death scene," he raved yesterday. "Most kids don't get to die on screen. How many films have you seen where a kid bites the big one? And it's the first visible killing of the movie." Later, excitement gave way to nerves. He's been fussing ever since, worried he'll blow his lines or not be able to scream convincingly when the demon turns on him and rips him to pieces. At least, it's not much better than, "Hellfire, I did it again, didn't I?" "Afraid so," I laugh. "Take it cool," Billy advises, mimicking David's on-set mannerisms. He's been even more impressed by the whole movie shooting experience than me. He now wants to be a director when he grows up. "Cool," Emmett snorts. "That's easy for you to say. You're not the one up there on display." "You know the lines," Billy murmurs, then laughs like Davida when she's trying to calm a nervous actor. "You probably know your lines better than anyone on set, even Davida. You're a professional. They'll come out whenever you're filming. And if not, who cares? Nobody gets it right the first time. And even if they do, David reshoots it anyway. You'll nail it the fifth or sixth time." Billy's not exaggerating about the reshoots. Every scene is played out at least 6 or 7 times from various angles, the actors trying out different expressions and tones. Repetition is part and parcel of the filmmaker's life. I don't know how they stand it. I'd go cuckoo if I had to say the same thing over and over, day after day. "He's quite the expert, isn't he?" Emmett remarks cuttingly. "Hey man, I'm just trying to help," Billy says, unruffled. "For someone with no real experience, you certainly know a lot about it." Billy laughs Emmett's criticism away. "I'm just calling it like I see it. If you'd rather I removed myself, no problem. Come on, Grumps, let's go and—" "No," Emmett pleads. "I'm sorry. I'm just all wound up. One last time, please. If I don't get it right, we'll quit and we'll all go play foosball, okay?" "Okay," Billy says. "But don't forget, cool." Emmett shoots him an exasperated glance, then stares at me with a grin. Focusing, he repeats his lines silently to himself, then tries them aloud, and all too predictably blows them again. As soon as he breaks down, we drag him off to the foosball table and keep him there, although he can't stop muttering his lines as he plays. Dinner with Dervish, Ginny, and some others in the ginormous catering tent at the heart of Slawter. Everyone talking at once, a nice buzz in the air. A mime artist signals to me that he'd like the salt and pepper. His name is Chai, and he's a bit of a nutcase. He never speaks, although he's not mute. Apparently he's perfectly chatty when he's not working, but throughout the duration of the shoot, he keeps his lips sealed. It doesn't matter if he has a tiny part in the movie and will only be filming for a few days. Chai considers himself a method actor. "How are you two faring?" Junie asks Billy and me. "Enjoying yourselves?" "Totally," Billy gushes. "It's great, incredibly invigorating and inspiring. I think I found my calling in life." "Not getting into any trouble, are you?" Dervish grunts. "As if," Billy smirks. "I was discussing your situation with Dervish earlier," Ginny says hesitantly. Uh-oh, that's never good when an adult says something like that. "I'm worried that you'll fall behind on your schoolwork," Ginny goes on. "Things have been a rush lately. Dervish accepting our offer, bringing you two with him. A crazy first week of shooting." Schooling arrangements have been made for the other children, but we overlooked you and Billy. I think it would be a mistake to let things continue as they are, and Dervish agrees, so— "No," Billy cries dramatically. "You're gonna stick us in class? Say it ain't so, Derv." "It's so," Dervish laughs. "Junie's right. You're going to be here 3 months, maybe longer. If you go that length of time without lessons, it'll mean you repeating a year when we get back to Carcery Vale." "You won't have to do full days," Junie promises. "We keep classes flexible to fit in around shooting. So it'll be a few hours here, a few hours there. Just keeping you in line with what your friends are doing back home. That doesn't sound so awful, does it? Too bad if it does, Dervish interjects before I can reply, because you don't have a choice. Slave driver, Billy mutters, but he's only pretending to be grumpy. We both knew this was coming. The freedom couldn't last forever. Ginny and Dervish start talking to each other again. Ginny's been with my uncle most times that I've seen him recently, which is strange, since they can't have a lot of business together. Dervish is part of the technical circle, whereas Ginny's job revolves around children. There must be another reason why he's sticking to her like superglue, and I think I know what it is. Good old-fashioned physical attraction. It seems incredible. If asked a week ago, I'd have laughed and said a bald old grump didn't have the romantic bone in his body. But something's stirring in the hidden depths of Dervish Grady. There's a gleam in his smile that I've never seen there before. He's switched to a pungent new aftershave. His clothes are freshly ironed. He's even started combing the wisps of hair dotted around the sides of his head into place. There's no doubt about it. He's trying to impress the cute albino. Ginny knows that Billy and I are friends with Emmett, so she places us in his class. Most of the other students are actors. There's the Keane twins, Cook and Keek, a boy and a girl, small and slender, very alike in looks. They don't speak much to anyone, going off by themselves whenever there's a free period. They have a big role in the film as eerie, psychic twins. Salit Smith is the main character of the star, right, is the main child star of Slawter. He's a bit older than the rest of us. A nice guy, but not the brightest spark. He just smiles a lot and nods in class, not bothering to apply himself, convinced he's going to be the biggest movie draw since Tom Cruise. I absolutely despise the other three, a clique of snobs presided over by a dreadful Beau Cunillard, a girl who was born solemnly to annoy. She's been in a few commercials and thinks she's God's gift, always dresses stylishly, like a model, sucks up to Davida more than and anyone else with power and influence, ignores the rest of us, treating us like simpletons or servants. Her brother, Abe, is almost as bad, a scrawny, miserable excuse for a child. He's not an actor, but the father, the loud, obnoxious Trump Cunillard, a movie agent, insisted that he be cast if they wanted to hire Beau. From the rumours, David resisted, but finally caved in and gave him a small part as a kid who raises the alarm when the demons are about to break through en masse. I don't think David gives away too often to Trump. Man, I'd forgotten that that was in this book. Anyway, I don't think David gives way too often, so Trump must be good at his job, which is just as well, because from what I've seen of Beau and Abe, they're awful at theirs. The third mini-tyrant is Vanalee Metcalf. Her parents are multimillionaires, too busy to waste time with their daughter on set, so she came equipped with her own bodyguard come servant, who glares at anyone who doesn't grovel at her feet. Beau, Abe, and Vanalee took one look at Billy and me when we were introduced to them this morning, smirked at each other in a snide, superior sort of way, and turned their noses up, let us know that we weren't worthy of direct notice. Our tutor is a sweet but nervous woman called uh, Sapatra June. I can tell within 10 minutes that she can't handle Beau and her posse. She lets them talk to each other while she's teaching and doesn't try to assert her authority. Sometimes she'll mutter, "Now, now, Beau, please pay attention," but without any real hope that the blonde, ponytail, stick-thinging brat will obey. Miss John seems genuinely pleased that Billy and I have been added to her class, probably because we're polite and show some interest. She chats to us warmly, finds out what we've been studying, takes a few notes, promises to haul us up to scratch in next to no time. I bet those scruff bags know a lot more about scratching. Beau sniffs. "Meaning?" I growl at her. "Lice, you moron," she screeches, and Abe and Vanalee burst out laughing. We found our nemesis, Billy mutters in my ear, pegging it dead on. I hate her grubs. I hate her good and proper. Does her character die in the script? I ask Emmett. No, he says. She ends up saving the town, along with Sallet. A pity, I sigh. But she does fall into a pit of demon manure at one stage, Emmett says, and my day lights up. Our first session lasts 2 hours, a mix of history, biology, and maths. Miss John seems to be confident in all subjects, a smart cookie. Then an assistant director pops in and says they need Beau and Sallet. Miss John checks her watch and says we might as well take a break, and asks any of us not involved in filming to return in an hour. It's certainly a lot more laid back than our school in Carcery Vale. Emmett wants to practice his lines on Billy and me again, but we don't have the patience, so we leave him with his mum in the trailer. We grab sandwiches from one of the many mobile canteens, then go on to see if there's anything exciting happening. There's not much to keep us amused these days. David and her crew are setting up a tracking shot on the street, trying to get lots of actors in place, working in sync with each other. Fairly boring to watch. A lot of filming is. We still can't believe we're here. Billy says that as we go for a wander, maybe this will become Dervish's full-time job and we can travel around the world on film shoots with him. I doubt it, I laugh. Your gran and granddad wouldn't allow it. I'm surprised they agreed to let Dervish have you this long. Did he work some magic spells on them? Nope, Billy says. They were happy to let me come. Gran loves movies, especially old flicks, starring the likes of David Nevin and Ingrid Bergman. She thought it was a great opportunity for me. I think she's hoping I'll fall in love with a beautiful blind cellist or some such guff. She believes a lot of those old films were based on true stories, that the world's really like that. Mind you, a girl would have to be blind to fall in love with you, I comment. Your face, Billy snorts. My flabby nether regions. Spot a similarity? I get Billy in a headlock and rub my knuckles into his skull, but it's all in fun. He has no idea the real reason why he's here. He thinks Dervish is his father, and he didn't want to spend a few months parted from his darling son. He doesn't know about Dervish wanting to make sure David doesn't raise hell, or about Pray at him's interest in experimenting on me. I can't wait to see the demon tomorrow, or it might even be tonight, Billy enthuses once I've released him. Emmett says it depends how the shooting goes today. If they finish that shot on the street in time, they'll have the scene later. It'll be coolio. I say neutrally. What are you moaning about, Goliath? Billy frowns. Then studying me carefully, his expression clears. Oh, I'd forgotten. Your parents and sister. He trails off into silence. Although Billy doesn't know about his lycanthropic genes or the battle that Dervish and I fought with Lord Loss, he knows demons killed my family. Are you going to be okay with all of this? Billy asks awkwardly. Sympathy isn't something he does well. Sure, I grunt. Really? He presses. Because I can't keep us here. They can't keep us here. I know Dervish signed those contracts and would say we'd stay to the end. But we didn't. If you want to leave, I'm sure there's nothing they can do about it. I've watched lots of courtroom movies. I know what I'm talking about. No, I smile. It'll be okay. I mean, we're talking movie demons here. Rubber, wire, paint. How scary can they be? Emmett's nervous all afternoon, practicing his lines even in class. David pops in to see him during lunch and told him they'd definitely be shooting his death scene tonight. The way he's behaving, pale, shivering, mumbling to himself, I think it might take quite a few attempts to get it right. Near the end of class, Emmett's summoned to the makeup trailer. He won't be required on set for a few hours yet, but they just want to run some tests. It's going to be a gory scene. David wants blood spurting every which way, so they need to make sure everything's set up smoothly before they stick him in front of the cameras. Sallet and Beau return as Emmett's leaving. I can't believe they're letting you go through all this. Go through with this farce, Bo says, blocking the doorway. You'll choke Egypt. You know it. I know it. Everyone knows it. So why don't you just leave him alone? Billy shouts, meddling cow. Now, Billy, that's not, Miss John begins. Shut up, pipsqueak. Bo defends herself, spitting venom at Billy. If I want advice from a fat geek with a dodgy eye, I'll let you know. Otherwise, I stand up, flexing my muscles, stretching aggressively. You're going to apologize, I tell Bo flatly. Says who? She retorts, but I've unnerved her. It's not often that I threaten anyone, but when I do, I can make quite an impression. I step out from behind my desk and crack my knuckles, staring at Bo levelly. Now, I say firmly. Bo glances at me, then sneers and says mockingly, I'm so sorry, Billy One Eye. I won't point the truth out to you again, and flicks her gaze back at Emmett. But you're still going to mess up. Let me know when you do. It's not too late for Abe to step in and do the job properly. I ignore her. Billy says, his left eye fluttering furiously, You'll be great. Davida wouldn't have picked you if she didn't believe you could do it. Thanks, said Emmett hollowly. Then he pushes past Bo, visibly upset. Bo smirks and takes her seat. That wasn't very nice, Miss John says disapprovingly. Bo looks up at our teacher, although she's just noticing she's there. Excuse me? You shouldn't, Miss John begins. What was that? Bo asks loudly, cutting off Miss John. She tilts her head and pushes her lower lip out with her tongue, daring Miss John to challenge her. For a moment it looks like she will, and I ready myself to cheer the timid teacher on, but then her shoulders sag, and she looks away. Let's get on with our lessons, she says meekly. I'll finish up with the others, then take you and Salat a couple of hours. Now, where were we? Someone should sort her out, Billy storms when class is finished. Blow Buddy Cuneyard. David should put that little monster over her knee and spank her till her hand turns blue. I agree, I said grimly, but it's not going to happen. She's a star. She can get away with crap like that. To be honest, I thought they'd all be like her. I'm surprised how normal the others are. A pity demons aren't real, Billy grumbles. We could feed Bo to them, and our horrible little brother Vanelli too. That would make life easier, I agree, but they're not real. There's nothing we can do except ignore her. Come on, I slap his back. Let's go and see what Emmett looks like in his makeup. Emmett's covered in fake blood. He's spitting it out and wiping it from his eyes. The bag exploded early, he moans. You squeezed too hard, the prop person said, sliding a hand inside Emmett's jumper, removing the empty plastic bag, which was filled with red, sticky liquid. You have to be more gentle. Don't worry, you'll get the hang of it soon. Emmett goes off to be cleaned before trying a fresh costume, having his makeup reapplied. Rather him than me. Sometimes an actor can spend most of the day sitting in the chair, having makeup dabbed on, cleaned off, dabbed on, cleaned off. Billy and I go for a swim, then head for dinner. We spot Dervish dining with Davida and Ginny, but they're talking shop, so we don't disturb them. After that we check on Emmett again. This time he's managed not to burst the bag of blood and is ready to face the cameras. She's been trying to unsettle me all week, he says, about Bo. She thinks Abe should have had this part. Her dad does too, and told my mum I was an amateur and shouldn't be here. Charming, Billy huffs. Mum hit the roof, Emmett chuckles. Told Trump Cuneyard what she thought of him and to keep out of our way for the rest of the shoot. She complained to Davida, but he's had an agent for several of the actors, so there's not much she can do. In an argument, if it's us or him, she has to take his side. I could easily be replaced, but if Trump walked off and told his gang to follow. Never mind, Billy says encouragingly. There's nothing we can do about it. It's your scene. Go out there, strut your funky stuff, and leave Trump Cuneyard and his brats to stew. Emmett laughed, then asked if we can run through his lines with us. This time we let him, and say nothing as he makes his customary mistake and grinds to a miserable halt. Then before he can practice again, the call comes and we have to leave. Showtime. This is the first big action shot of the movie, so a large crowd of curious bystanders is gathered. Thanks to modern technology, scenes with monsters aren't normally interesting to watch being filmed. More often than not, an actor will play out their part against a blue screen background. The monster effects are added later, using computers. But David wants the demons to look as lifelike as possible, for the action to play realistically. That means taking a less flashy approach than our other movies, keeping it gritty and believable, using almost no computer effects. Billy and I find a good place to watch next to Dervish and Junie. The scene's being filmed on one of the smaller, darker alleys of Slawter. There's a manhole on the left side of the street, from which the cover has been removed. The demon will spring out of the manhole, grab Emmett, and drag him underground. This is going to be fun, Dervish says warmly. Hardly anyone has seen the demon's costume. I think people will be really scared. Nonsense, Billy says. How can you be scared of a guy in a monster suit? Trust me, Dervish grins. It doesn't look like a guy in a monster suit. There are engines and wires within the costume, so it can pull expressions, ooze slime, like you wouldn't believe, even. He lowers his voice. It smells. Come again? Billy blinks. Emmett doesn't know this, so don't say anything, but Davida wants to wring as much genuine terror out of him as she can. So she's created a demon-type stench to throw him off guard. She has a few other tricks up her sleeve, too. I feel sorry for the kid. He doesn't know what's going to hit him. I don't think that's fair, I mutter. He's nervous enough as it is. Don't worry, Ginny smiles. We talked it over with his mother. She's given us the all clear. He'll enjoy the joke when he recovers. It'll make it all the more believable, which will make his acting seem all the more professional. I'll stand him in good stead when he's ready for his next big role. I'm a bit worried about Emmett, despite Ginny's reassurances. I'd hate if he got so freaked out he couldn't finish filming the scene and had to hand the part over to Abe. I can see the moody Master Cuneyard standing across from us with Bo and their fat, leering father Trump. I wonder if the stench idea was theirs to begin with. I'd like to warn Emmett, but David is talking with him, and Salit, explaining the dynamics of the scene. This is where Salit finds Emmett eating their headmaster and realizes he's working for a demon. Emmett starts to give a long speech about how demons are going to take over the town and why he's working for them. In the middle of it, his demonic ally pops out of the manhole and makes off with him. It's important that you don't look like you know what's going on or what's going to happen, David tells Emmett. As far as you know, this demon is your best buddy, and Salit's the one in trouble. You'll hear some rumblings, feel a few tremors. Ignore them and concentrate on your lines. About that, Emmett cuts in. I've been having a few problems. Oh, David smiles, waiting for him to continue. It's the line. At least, it's not much worse than the guy who gives in to temptation and steals a chocolate bar. I know the line, but it keeps coming out as badder instead of worse. If it happens, can we do it again straight away? I'll try to get it right, but I might. David holds up a hand. Emmett, as far as I'm concerned, there's not one line in the script that isn't open to negotiation. I should have made that clear earlier. It's your voice I want to hear, not mine. If batter is what comes more naturally to you, then batter it is. I can change the line? Emmett gulps. Absolutely. A big smile works his way across Emmett's face. Across from us, Abe and the other Cuneyards are glowering. They couldn't hear the conversation, but they can see the fear fade from Emmett. They lost their chance to bump Abe up the pecking order. I want to thumb my nose at them and stick out my tongue. But that would be childish, so I settle for a smug wink when I catch Bo's furious eye. They shoot the early exchanges several times from a variety of angles. A fake corpse is placed in the alley, close to the manhole cover. Emmett starts the scene crouched over it, pulling bits off and stuffing them in his mouth. He's so convincing it's hilarious, and Salit keeps laughing when he comes upon him. Matt, he cries, calling Emmett by his screen name. What are you doing with Mr. Letherland's nose in your... Sorry, he laughs, doubling over. I can't help it. You look so crazy. Don't worry, David says, smiling patiently. We have all night. Keep trying. The joke will wear thin eventually. She grimaces at the cameraman. I hope. Salat finally manages his lines without laughing, and they move on to the next scene. The cameras and lights are redirected. The makeup artist makes sure Salat and Emmett are looking the way they should. David has the last few couple of words with Emmett, and they're ready to go. Okay, people, an assistant director yells. We're going to try and get it right first time. I want absolute quiet. When everyone settles down, the technicians do their final checks. David looks around slowly from one member of the crew to the other, then nods. A man calls out the title, the scene, and take, and snaps the traditional clapperboard shut. And action! David roars. How could you do it? Salat cries in his role as Bobby Mint, hero boy. What? Emmett protests. It's not like anyone liked Mr. Linterland. But he's human, Salat cries. He was, Emmett corrected him. He's yummy for my tummy now. Emmett rubs his stomach with a sick laugh. I've always wanted to eat human flesh. I mean, it's not an obsession or anything. I wouldn't go out of my way to kill, skin, and cook somebody. But I've always been curious, wondering what it would taste like. So when the opportunity dropped into my lap, yeah, I took it. Does that make me a bad person? I don't think so. At least, not much better than the guy who gives in to temptation and steals a bar of chocolate. It's not like I killed him myself. But you let it happen, Salat cries. You knew about the demon. Emmett shrugs. What's done is done. No points crying over spilt milk or a butchered headmaster. He holds out a severed, bloody arm to Salat. You should try some, Bobby. You might like it. The ground begins to rumble. A foul stench fills the air. For a second, Emmett falters, and his gaze flicks towards the open manhole. He recovers and continues like a true professional. It goes down super sweet, especially when you add a dollop of ketchup. Tastes a bit like. That's when the demon bursts from the manhole and grabs him. It happened in a blur, so fast, so violent, so shocking, that several people in the crowd gasp aloud. The demon is green, slimy, with fierce yellow eyes, 4 long arms that end in claws, a mouthful of fangs. There's something wolfish about its face, long and lean, with patches of hair here and there. The demon whips Emmett off the ground. He screams, not having to fake it, caught off guard. Salat falls backwards, yelling with genuine terror. My world goes red with fear. I'm thrown back in time, that night in the cellar, earlier, my old home, walking into my parents' bedroom to find Lord Loss, vein and artery at work, feeling the exact same thing in my gut now as I did then. The demon screeches and vanishes back underground, carrying Emmett with it. There's a moment of hush, then Emmett's face appears, sheer terror in his expression. Help! He cries. For the love of... Blood erupts around him, shooting through the hole like a geyser. The howl of the demon drowns out his final words. His eyes go wide, then dead. As his head slumps, the demon pulls Emmett, disappears again, this time forever. It all happened so swiftly, I'm in a state of shock. So's everyone else. Stunned silence, people with hands over their mouths and disbelief in their eyes. I sense screams building in a dozen throats, ready to erupt at once, a chorus of terror. Now that's what I call a death scene, David Ahim roars triumphantly, scattering the spell of fear. Cut! Did you get that? You better have. We'll never top that take. And suddenly everyone's laughing, relief flooding through them. They thought for a few seconds that the demon was real, that Emmett was really being attacked. Now the moment has passed, and they've remembered. This is make-believe, horrific fun, a movie. They're embarrassed at having been caught out, but since so many of the others reacted the same way, they're not feeling too red-faced. I told you, Dervish laughs, clapping loudly. Wasn't that the most vicious, cool thing you've ever seen? My heart, Ginny gasps, fanning her face with one hand. I didn't expect it to happen so fast. That was amazing, Billy exclaims. Did you see that, Grubbs? The spray of blood. It was like it was coming from a fireman's hose. It was... Grubbs? Are you okay? Hey, Dervish, I think there's something wrong with Grubbs. He looks like... I block out Billy's words and the other signs. I experience the same sense of terror that many of the other people had felt around me, the same jolt of fear, the same moment of belief that had been real, whereas others got over that moment. I can't, because I'm remembering the look of the demon. its movements, the hate in its eyes, the effect it had on me. And I'm staring at the manhole, all the blood around it, no sign of Emmett or the monster. And I'm thinking, every part of me is insisting, that was no damn guy in the suit. That demon was real. End of chapter. Film folk. Gonna leave it there for tonight. Thank you very much for listening. Try to get this up on YouTube as usual. Monday is Mystery Mondays. We'll be doing